The forest is such an interesting place. Forests can be both very beautiful and natural, yet their vastness pose an extreme danger to anyone who is walking within it. If you were to get lost, you just might die out there, and God forbid you get trapped, because you'll almost certainly die out there. So, take heed of the unfortunate souls who share their stories with you today. Take a couple of lessons from their disturbing stories, because who knows, they might just save your life. I want to share one of the scariest photo shoots of my entire life, not only because of the creepy subject, but also the creepy guy. You can treat this as a cautionary tale. So last night, my model and I finally did the photo shoot we wanted to do for a long time. So basically, I wanted a dead girl in headlights at night type of photos. It was 9 p.m., but it was already pitch black, so we found some deserted road in the middle of nowhere and started to shoot. We got through 2 outfits before she started to change into her third. And then, all of a sudden, we saw a car in the forest. There was a dirt road to the left of us. Apparently, he got stuck in the mud and couldn't get out. We were waiting for him to get unstuck and drive wherever he wanted to drive, but it was taking so long, we decided to go for it and shoot anyway. She was still trying to change into her third outfit. It wasn't easy in the dark, and also it was a small car. So I decided to go outside and get my things ready, so she wouldn't need to stand in the cold rain for too long. As soon as I got out of the car, this dude magically got unstuck and sped to the road we were on. So I hopped in the car, we locked the door, and just sat there. In that moment, we were a little scared, but still, he could be very well just stuck, and sped out quickly to get out of the mud. He pulled up to the driver's seat, where my model sat, like 10 centimeters away from her car. He was so close he nearly broke off her side mirror, and then he started looking into our car. We had this big butcher knife for the photos, so she pulled it from her bag and showed it to him. That's when he sped off. We decided to go the opposite way in case he decided to block the road or something, but unfortunately we met a dead end and had to turn back. When we went to the place we met this creep, he was in the same spot as before, pretending to be stuck again. So we just sped right past him and called the police, because we thought he could just be waiting for someone to go up to him and offer help and most likely harm them. So guys, please be safe, pay attention to your surroundings, and maybe don't go taking photos on some deserted roads. Oh, and creepy guy from the woods, I hope we never meet again. This happened a couple years ago when I was 16. It was a warm summer night. At nights like those, me and my friend would often grab a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of beer and go outside and enjoy them. You see, we come from a really small town where everyone is somehow connected, so the only way for us to drink and smoke without our parents knowing was to do so in secluded places. Luckily, the town is surrounded with huge forests. We were both very familiar with them since we practically grew up there. This time, it was night as usual. We both grabbed our forbidden contraband and some flashlights, and we headed out. We took the path through the long meadow, which ended at an edge of a forest. From there, we led a path through the forest, by which it was a 20-minute walk back to the town in steep downhill terrain. At the place where the meadow and the forest meet, there's a gazebo with a fireplace where people go for picnics. As we were walking through the meadow, we would stop a few times to ensure from afar that the gazebo was unoccupied. It was around 11 p.m., and the night was incredibly dark. Even though we were out in the open, we had to use our flashlights to see everything. When we made sure that the air was clear, we approached the gazebo to light our first cigarette. We were just standing there, puffing and talking, while always scouting out our surroundings with the beams of our flashlights. Maybe after 5 minutes, we decided to take the path through the forest back to town. We walked about 30 meters, at which point we couldn't see the place we were previously standing. And at that moment, that's when we heard it. You see, from the gazebo we were standing just seconds earlier came this long and terrifying scream. It sounded as if somebody, a man by the sound of it, was being cut into pieces while still very much alive. That kind of scream, that turns your blood into ice instantly. And after the first scream, there was a pause for a few seconds. During this time, we were both so scared we couldn't even move. Then it started again. It was even louder and more terrifying. The second scream snapped us back to reality, and without a word, we just started sprinting through the rough terrain, not once looking back. At this point, I was so pumped with adrenaline that I couldn't even hear anything except my own heartbeat resonating through my ears. I'm almost certain we've never run that fast, and we didn't stop until we reached the light of the town. And when we finally did, we both just sat on a sidewalk under a lamppost, panting and gasping for air. Nobody said anything for a good 30 minutes until my friend just cut through the tension with one word: fuck. After a while, we started talking about it. We came up with the conclusion that either somebody was having fun at our expense or somebody got really hurt. And at the end, we decided to head back there the first thing in the morning. But surprise, surprise, there was nothing. No signs of anyone being injured, and no signs of anyone struggling. We decided that it was just someone playing pranks on us. However, to this day, it keeps gnawing at me. Something just doesn't add up. We were standing there for quite some time, so the person must have been very well hidden. On the other hand, it would have been almost impossible for anyone just to walk in there without any light, since it was so dark. And even if he had some kind of torch, we would certainly spot him. Anyway, Screaming Man in the Forest, let's not meet. Quick edit. I'm 100% sure it wasn't an animal. As I previously mentioned, I spent a good portion of my life in these woods, so I'm familiar with the local fauna. There is nothing around these parts that could have made that noise. I am absolutely positive it was a scream from a man. This is truly the scariest and most horrible thing that has ever happened to me. I have never been so petrified in my life, and yet to this day, I still don't know who this man was, or what he was trying to do, or if he still is where I saw him. I'm sorry for the long geographical description. I just want everyone to understand how secluded I was when this happened, and how badly it could have ended if it wasn't for my parents. I was back home for the summer for the first time in a year after starting university. Our home was, and still is, just outside of a small town with forests all around. There was a small man-made lake which was derived from a river that ran for miles through the forest that split off into a few streams east of the lake. Near my home, there was a small grassy path that led to the river following a stream. It was a long walk, but one I used to go on often as a child. I know the forest there well, and I know where I could cut through these dense trees to meet the stream. The walk I would go on always led me off the path, which turned northwest slowly, so away from the stream, and then took a sharp turn west after a few miles walk, at which point the stream was hidden quite deep into the forest. I'd continue to walk north and follow the stream through the forest to get to the river, then follow the river west to get to the lake. It was easy to get lost in the forest because of the terrain. It isn't just a slope down to the water, it goes up and down, and then you end up completely surrounded by trees. I had spent many days wandering around there alone, or with my dad, over the span of 18 years. Never saw anyone else in the forest. I went there twice that summer, both times alone-ish. The first time I left in the morning, I walked along the path away from the stream to a sharp bend, then cut back into the forest. I reached the stream after an hour or so, as I was running my hands in the water. I heard a bell from far away, coming from the north. Something was making a bell ring, and fervently and periodically, which I found really strange. I listened well, wondered if it was a lost hunting dog, and started moving towards the sound. I realized quickly it couldn't have been an animal. I could tell the bell was too heavy because of how clear the sound was, so it really couldn't be on a collar. I kept moving, and the bell was moving away from me. It stopped completely after 5 minutes. The stream wasn't big enough or strong enough to carry a bell that could have been enclosed in a tin can or something, and the river was far too still. I thought of everything, but nothing explained the sound, apart from one obvious thing, which I didn't feel comfortable with for some reason. I knew it had to be a person, and I stopped thinking about it and just walked on normally. Until I found a badger, a blooming dead one, carefully decapitated. It had been obviously done with a knife, and it was fairly fresh. The body was still limp, and there wasn't much of a smell coming from it. The wound was full of maggots, but I knew that happened soon after exposure. The sound of the bell had been following the stream, and so had I. So the badger was put there, maybe killed there, at least decapitated, while I was walking that way. I suppose, I don't know really. Nothing else happened that day. 1 week later, I went back for the second time that summer, and the last time ever. I left home around 6 p.m. I made it to the stream, then walked to the river in an hour, then decided to go back the way I came because it was getting late, and it was raining quite heavily. The sun had set around 9 p.m., and I was walking as fast as I could. The sound of the rain in the trees was surreal and loud. I was somewhat trotting with my head down for a while, through the clearest and open part of the forest, when I bumped into something heavy. The smell was sickly. It was a decomposing body of a badger, with its head strung in front of its paws. The area looked a bit like ham because of the way it was tied. It was just swinging from a tree, like an almost literal load of bollocks. It was this putrid bag of stench, wet, dripping green liquid, and I started gagging. I had some sort of mucus-textured fluid in my hair. It was repulsive. At first, I just stared at it, slightly gobsmacked. Then I started fidgeting violently because I felt like I was drenched in its juices. I was soaking from the rain, and my senses became confused. It felt like a bucket of ice water had been thrown over me when I realized that I just walked the same way to get to the river, so someone had strung up the body after I'd passed it on the way there. Someone knew I'd see it. So, was someone watching me and running around the forest were the faint sounds of breaking branches around me not animals? I looked around and I just started jogging. I was half running, half walking away from the stream towards the path, and then I heard the bell again. I proceeded to call my dad while running. I told him to meet me on the path where it sharply turns west. It was the closest part of the path to me, to go as fast as he could, and that someone was in the forest. I can't explain the feeling I had. It was like I just shat out my intestines and stomach. I literally felt the hairs on my neck raised despite being soaked. It was dark. I jogged as fast as I could. I was panicking because the path was still a bit far away, just too far to feel safe. It was still raining. Every single sound was muffled. I felt like everything was further away than ever before. The bell went on for way longer than last time, on and off. I felt like it was surrounding me at one point. The fear combined with my compromised hearing and the fact that I couldn't flip and breathe properly was making me slightly lose my sense of direction. I was automatically heading southwest, but I really wasn't sure what I was even doing. I was breathing like a goddamn horse, coughing my lungs up, crying out loud like a toddler does, tripping over leaves and twigs like an idiot. I stayed on the phone with my mom, who was on her way with my dad. I kept hearing sounds, but I wasn't quite sure what they were. My mom was screaming on the phone at the same time that they were on the path, that I needed to run, that my dad had gotten out and was heading east on the path bend. I was terrified, so I went into survival mode. I was doing half running, half speed walking thing again because I was out of breath. Then I heard branches break. Clear footsteps, for the first time, down in the forest, and the bell ringing louder. I didn't want to, but I looked over my shoulder, and that's when I saw what was in the forest with me. A tall figure creeping in my direction at the very end of the clearing, ringing this bell slowly in front of his stomach. I could tell he was staring straight at me. Now I don't know if there was a hidden secret sprinting ability or an instinctual adrenaline-induced superhuman powers, but when I tell you, I ran for my life. I fucking couldn't look back once. I screamed as much as I could. I lied. I'm on the phone with the police and they're on the path. Dad, can I see you? I'm here. I wanted to yell, Dad, please, where are you? But I kept that to myself. I felt like something awful was going to happen. I felt like the man was right behind me. I kept telling myself not to look back. I was gasping and wheezing, crying so hard and screaming for my dad. I felt shivers on my back. And then it switched off. I just ran. I even dropped my bag. I just only realized I didn't have it anymore when I was in the car. I felt like my phone was my only way home. Things no longer felt real. It was like my legs were moving by themselves. I don't even know if the man was still following me. I just could only hear my heart beating in my ears and the bell. I finally heard my dad shout my name, and I knew he was coming my way, and that he could see me because of his intonation of his voice. I pretty much lunged myself at him when we got to each other. My dad heard the bell too, and my mom could hear it on the phone. She was waiting in the car ready to leave fast. We went directly to the police station. I got medical attention soon after. My dad burst into tears in the car, said he could hear the bell and thought he wouldn't be able to see me. Asked what if I didn't have my phone and what if he didn't pick up. They were as almost terrified as me because they witnessed everything through the call. They could hear me trying to run. They could hear the danger. They just couldn't see it. The police couldn't really do much. They searched the area and the only thing they could find was a folded t-shirt placed under a rock. I really didn't question that one at the time. And my bag was not recovered. They said it was probably some homeless man living in the forest, but failed to realize what could have happened if my dad didn't know that part of the forest like I did, and where to find me. I'm not blaming anyone. The entire thing was my fault. There was just so many what-ifs. I wanted to believe that it was just someone who decided to live in the woods and hunt or something, Maybe they were a bit mentally unstable and they felt angry that I came into their territory. But what if it was more insidious? The way he moved towards me was abnormal. It was perverse because of how slowly he was ringing the bell. It was like he had me trapped. I didn't see any more detail. I just ran. To this day, I can't bloody go anywhere while I'll be alone, and the sound of bells is a real problem. The smell of moss as well. Anyway, my parents and Steve Jobs saved my life, so go hug yours now. And take decapitated badgers and bells as pagan signs that you're unwelcome. What's up, everyone? I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, let me know in the comments down below, and leave a like if you liked the video. And if you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, fam. What you doing watching videos and not subscribing? And if you're old, make sure to hit that bell so you get these notifications every time. Seriously, hit that bell. It will help out the channel grow immensely, exponentially into the stratosphere, and I want you to be a part of that. And as always, I gotta thank the Patreon supporters. So thank you to Destroyer, Emily R, Trey, Muffy Lou, Brody Gilbert, Noah, Sir Teacup, Trenton Golden, Vermont, Ethan, John Robinson, Eva, Arolina, Catherine Taylor, Arjen, Pixie Arc 5, Hannah, Keith Myers, Will Billy, Dustin, and Hostmar. Thank you so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. And if you want to help support the channel, there are 2 links in the description, one to my Patreon and one to my merch store. Both funds go directly into the channel so we can maintain what's happening here. And as always, stay zesty.